I say this every show. I do love my show. I know a lot of people out there have been listening for a long time. Thank you to those people out there, as well as on Facebook. We're live on Facebook, so hi to everybody out there. Like us and follow us. We're going to share the show later on. And right now, I want to go into a topic that's really huge and important for everyone who is over 18. Right?
Absolutely correct.
I have with me Keith Lowbrie, and he is with Reliant Law Group. Keith, I want you to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, okay? Keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, well, I'll try. I get a little long-winded sometimes.
That's okay, I'll stop you when I need to. But what I want you to do is I want you to tell everybody what you do, but why it's so important.
100%.
Okay,
absolutely.
go ahead.
Well, number one, thank you for having me on your show, and I just want to say I love the fact that you're making businesses aware, again, people aware of the local businesses here in Arizona and the Valley. I think that's just excellent.
Thank you.
So yeah, a little bit of background about myself. I've been here in the Valley for, gosh, going on 20 years now, so I may as well be a native, but originally from the Northwest, and I had to get out of that rain. It rains a lot there if you've ever been to the Northwest. So a buddy of mine was in the funeral industry, and he got me involved with that, and then he relocated to Arizona, and he got involved with the estate planning industry. And he said, Keith, instead of, helping people plan for, their death, which I know sounds so morbid, he said, instead you're going to help people communicate their wishes to their loved ones that are left behind when they pass away. And I said, you know what, that sounds really nice. So he had me relocate to Arizona. I started with one of the larger estate planning firms here in Arizona, but I slowly got kind of fed up with how they were treating their clients. And I'm not going to name who that is, by the way. But I found my way to Reliant Law Group, and I have to say I love Reliant. I love the legal staff. I love the support staff. And I love the way that they treat their clients and help their clients get these important documents in place. So that's what I'm all about.
So, and why is it so important for people to have these legal documents? Why?
Well, I'll tell you why. So at the seminars, so I do a lot of the seminar speaking for Reliant throughout the whole state of Arizona, but I tell folks that you really need to have what I refer to as a complete estate plan in place. And the reason I say complete is because that's what we're doing. We're communicating our wishes when we pass away. That's where a last will and testament or a living trust comes into the picture. We're able to let our loved ones know that are left behind, who's in charge, who's going to handle administering our estate, and who are the beneficiaries, who are we leaving everything to. So we're able to communicate who's in charge and who gets what. But with that being said, some of these documents, so they're in a complete estate plan, as I call it, come into the picture only in the event that we become incapacitated. And those are power of attorney documents. We need to have a financial power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney, and also a living will as well. Sometimes that document is referred to as an advance directive, and sometimes folks refer to that as a, the pull the plug document, not to be morbid.
Well, you know what, though, at some point, is that what you want? I mean, do you want to be on those tubes?
Absolutely not.
Right,
because,
not me.
No, not at all. I mean, and that's what people don't realize. That document in particular comes into play if we're ever in a persistent vegetative state. And, that basically means we're brain dead. We're not coming out of that condition, but we're able to communicate our wishes and a decision that we made to our family members. Do we want the machines hooked up, or do we not want those machines hooked up? But what we're really doing there, we're taking the burden off of our loved ones, because here we can't communicate. So that's why I call these documents, it's a communication tool. And it's our way of communicating those wishes.
What I love that you did say that it's communicating your wishes. And some people think, I don't have anything, or what have you. Well, it doesn't matter what you have. And really what it matters is what do you want.
That's right.
The most important thing. But also I think what's really neat that you guys do is that you do a complimentary review. It's a consultation over something you even already have had.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially here in Arizona, as we all know, during COVID, right? We had a huge influx of people that relocated from the different state, and a lot of those folks, maybe they had a living trust that was there, and now they've relocated to Arizona. So just to point out, when we're talking about the living trust, and I have kind of a bias towards the trust because I absolutely love that type of estate plan. But a trust is good in all 50 states, but what a lot of folks don't realize is now that they're in Arizona, you may want to consider having some of your health care power of attorney documents update or revise for the state of Arizona. And the reason I say that is because those documents do change on a state-by-state basis.
Very important.
Absolutely.
The things that you hear, maybe it's you or someone that and I love this I'm going to say it now, dust off your estate plans. Because everybody should get them out. And they should look at them at least how many times, maybe every couple of years, every year or so?
Yeah, I like to say every year. And again, as you mentioned, I use that term all the time at my seminars. A lot of folks, they finally get around to getting this done. you know, and, you know, just to touch on human nature here, that thing goes on a bookshelf and it collects what? Dust. You got it, that's right. So break that thing out, go through it. The beauty of the trust is a couple of key words there. It's revocable, which means it's flexible or changeable, but while we're living. So it allows us to make amendments to the documents, add assets to the trust. It's a beautiful document.
Now is the time. Now, they do free complimentary, it's a consultation, but it comes along with this review, so if you already have one, please go in and have it updated, just to make sure everything is the way you wanted it, because more than likely, it's not. How many times, you gotta tell us statistically with what you do, how many times does that happen where you have to change it?
All the time.
All the time.
I'll give you an example. Again, we talked about the COVID and people moving here. So at my seminars, I'll ask folks, okay, who has a trust? And I'll get a bunch of hands raised. And the next question I ask, well, that's wonderful, but your house here in Arizona, was it titled to your trust? And people go, oh, I didn't know I had to do that. So, like I said, it's cross the T's, dot the I's, let's make sure everything's up to date, everything's up to snuff.
And also this, why should someone call you as opposed to saying, oh, I can get all that information online?
Well, and they can, you know, and that's a great way to start. But here's the thing, again, it's just like anything, right? I want a specialist. I want somebody that's going to focus on what it needs to have happen. You know, I'm going to go to the heart doctor, right? If I have, you know, a heart attack, I want to see a heart surgeon, right? It's the same thing. You want people that are going to specialize in estate planning. That's what we do at Reliant.
Their phone number is 602-325-8447. Their website is reliant-gh.com. They're located right here in Phoenix. I implore everyone out there that's listening, you should have a plan, and you should have, especially over 18, anyone over 18 should have the power of,
you got it.
Which one?
Financial power of attorney. More importantly, the healthcare power of attorney and that living will. Absolutely.
These are so important. And I have said this, I know I've said it before, you know, if Google, you cannot talk to Amazon without them checking on you. Can you imagine when you go into the hospital, or your kids go into, you're in the hospital, you don't always die. Sometimes you're not dead, but you're incapacitated.
You got it. And of course, you know, that's what people think, incapacity. Well, that could be a number of things. It could be anything from Alzheimer's, right? I've lost my faculties. I can't, you know, communicate anymore. Who's going to be able to do that on my behalf? So I always tell folks those power of attorney documents, in my opinion, those are more important than what happens when we pass away.
Sure.
Because here we are living and breathing. I need someone that can act on my behalf for my benefit. That's where those documents come into the picture.
Their phone number again is 602-325-8447. Call them and have a complimentary, it's a review over if you have one. And if you don't have one, you should have one.
Absolutely.
Okay, it doesn't matter. I know my ex-husband has said this many, many times. Well, I don't need one because, you know, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have money. It's not about money in any way.
Absolutely not. Like I said, it's your way of communicating to those that are left behind when you pass away. That's where a last will and testament or a living trust comes into the picture. Those are excellent documents. And I know I keep harping on it here, but more importantly are those power of attorney documents. I just can't overemphasize that enough.
Having a complete estate plan is more important than anything. Making sure that it is complete and what your assets are and they're allocated to the right place and the right people, right?
That's right.
Now, I know that I did my thing here and I just kind of went off, and I'm enjoying the way that you are too, and that's okay. I think the most important thing, I would like you to first just say one thing, because we're going to go to a break.
Sure.
What makes an estate go into a probate?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, the lapse in ownership on an asset. And again, I'm not going to get too overwinded on that, but also we have 2 asset thresholds that trigger probate in Arizona. We'll talk about that next.
So the number to call is 602-325-8447. Check them out. It's reliant-gh.com. Hang tight. We'll be back in just a minute. Okay, you're good. So you got all that? You know? So that's our first 15 already. Okay. Now we're just going to go to a quick break, and we'll come back and do that one more time.
That's fast. You weren't
kidding. I know. I know. We could talk about it for an hour.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you answered that enough, or do you want to come back and say something again on it? Okay.
I love that. I love all the transitions.
Okay, so you've done that already.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll talk about how to avoid it when we get back.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about, I mentioned the 2 asset threshold. I'll touch on that real fast. And then we'll talk about how to avoid it.
2 asset thresholds. Is that what it is?
That's what I refer to it as. So one pertains to real estate, one's from personal property. So we'll throw out a couple of numbers there.
And then we'll do this one, okay. You've even done 5 already, basically.
Yep, we've touched on that. I think we can scratch that off. The online stuff.
I like this idea too. I've never think I've ever talked about it. So the commercials about the last will and testaments not being enough to avoid proof. Okay, I'll talk about that. We'll try to see what we can get to.
Yeah.
If you don't get to it all, it's okay.
Not a big deal. Carol, you are awesome. How long have you been doing this?
Thank you. 17 years.
That's awesome. I mean, bang, bang, bang. That was outstanding.
Thank you.
That's very cool.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know what though? Like anything else, when you do it a lot,
You got it.
right?
It becomes second nature.
Second nature.
Yep, that's right. Absolutely.
And Howard here has been doing what he's does. How long?
Too long.
Too long. 1990 what?
Oh, I started in 1997,
1900s?
1998, yeah, right. Thank you very much. By the way, I think your passion comes through.
Yeah.
Your excitement and your passion really comes through.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
I want you
that.
to know that.
No,
Yes.
I love what I do. So.
Yeah.
So
I-
far, number 1, you guys,
Yeah.
but because the last guy, he was good, but he just answered really quickly. They were short and sweet,
Yeah.
like kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
No
That was
feeling.
good. Yeah,
No feeling.
yeah.
But that's okay. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Hey,
'Cause
teach their own.
you know
Yeah.
what? The thing is that everybody relates to somebody different. You
Absolutely.
know? It's always like
Yep,
that.
you're absolutely correct.
This is my longest running guest. This guy is Hypnotic One.
What is that?
He is a hypnotherapist.
Oh, really?
He's
Cool.
16 years.
Okay.
Almost 17 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Locally?
Yeah.
I mean, just obviously. Okay.
No, he's local.
Yeah.
So welcome back, everyone. We're talking with Keith Lowbrie, and he is with Reliant Law Group. We are talking about estate planning and why it's so important to have somebody, if you've already got one done, have it, dust it off, take it out, have him look at it, because they do a complimentary review. And he says every single time, he looks at someone's old estate plan, it needs to be changed.
There's going to be something wrong with it, more than likely.
More than likely.
Yep.
Now, you wanted to talk a little bit about the 2 asset thresholds that you were going to talk about with
Well,
probate.
yeah, it's that probate, that nasty word probate, you know, and here's the thing with probate, sometimes it's very simple, other times it can be an absolute nightmare. But what I always tell folks is we're trying to avoid that whole probate process. Because here's the thing, when we do pass away, our loved ones, well, they should be grieving our loss. At least that's what we hope anyway, right? They shouldn't have to fumble through 50 different file cabinets trying to figure out, well, where is everything? So again, when we put this estate plan in place, we're trying to communicate our wishes, where is everything, but we're also trying to keep those assets out of probate court. So probate, what it is, it's a court process, just like any other court process. There's a judge involved. 9 times out of 10, your loved ones would have to hire an attorney to represent them. You got it.
Cha-ching.
And that's what I tell folks too. Probate drains our 2 most precious commodities as human beings, which is what? Oh yeah, time and money. You got it. So that's the whole thing here. But what a lot of folks don't realize is that in Arizona, a couple of assets could trigger probate for you. So the first one has to do with real estate. So for example, this is what I'm about to say, and anytime I mention this at my seminars, people go, what is this, a joke? But here's the thing. In Arizona, if you own a home, if it's worth more than $100,000, keyword there, worth, and that's the joke part, right? Because I mean, you could be on a half-acre parcel of land in Maricopa County, it's going to be a heck of a lot more than $100,000. So if your home is worth more than $100,000, and if on the deed of that home you have not acknowledged where it's going to transfer to before you pass away, probate will occur upon your death. Now that's the simplified version. Again, I get into this a lot more in detail in my seminars. Now most of us in Arizona, we're utilizing the irrevocable living trust to keep our real estate and some other assets out of probate court, because when we title our assets to a trust, that's creating a seamless transfer of those assets to whomever or wherever we want those assets to go to before we pass away. So we're utilizing it as a probate avoidance tool.
Well, first of all, yes, you're dead. So, or if you're not dead, you could be incapacitated.
You got
and
it.
so, the thing is that it is for everybody else. Everything you're hearing today that we're talking about isn't necessarily, actually, that's not true. It is for you because it's your wishes.
You got it,
So
that's
that
right.
part is for you.
Absolutely.
But the other huge part of this is, and if people only knew, the people's graves, they'd be rolling.
Absolutely.
Because you don't realize what can happen. And like I'm going to tell you this story.
Yeah.
My dad, he had a what they call a pour-over will.
Yep.
Okay, and he had made sure that he wanted it to be sure that my brothers who borrowed money were going to pay that back
Absolutely.
through the estate.
Right.
And he, unfortunately, this is where people make mistakes too.
Yep.
He didn't notarize it.
Oh, jeez.
So
Yeah.
guess what?
Yep.
And I'm almost 90% positive that my brother's friend, who
Yeah.
was an attorney, didn't even bother to have him do that because guess what?
They were in
He was
cahoots.
looking for exactly. For sure.
So I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but no, that's unfortunately
And
that
it
does
happens
happen a lot.
A lot. And
Yeah.
here's what happened. It wasn't. And if he knew how much it hurt me,
Right.
and that what happened,
Absolutely.
it was a stunning event for me, and it took a lot for me to get over with. And it's not that it was so much money,
Right.
and I never even had the money. It wasn't.
Yeah.
He borrowed it, and they had a gentleman's agreement.
Absolutely.
You got to make sure they're done right. It's one thing to have an estate plan, and,
Yep.
and we're going to talk. What do you call it? A complete estate plan. But one thing to make sure that it's done right. That's a whole nother ballgame.
And done right the first time, a lot of times. You know, because a lot of folks, you know, they'll get into these documents, they'll do the research on the internet, maybe they've, you know, looked up LegalZoom, or there's another outfit out there called Trust and Wills, and which are online platforms, and nothing wrong with that. But again, you're getting some of the legal documents, but like we've been talking about, is it done right? So that's what we do. We're a professional firm. That's what we focus on.
And so they offer a complimentary complete estate plan. It's a review, whether you have one now. If you don't have one, they'll set one up for you.
Correct.
And again, that phone number to call is 602-325-8447. And you can call them and have a consultation with them. They're right here in Phoenix. So the commercials that you hear about, you know, with the last will and testaments not being enough to avoid, what do people do?
Right, right. Well, you hear these commercials all the time. Oh, a will is not enough to avoid probate, which, you know, that's not a false statement. But here's what I also want to clarify too. A lot of times you hear these commercials, and I want everybody to understand that this estate planning is not a one-size-fits-all document or approach here. So those of you that have a will out there, I'm not trying to bash a will with what I'm about to say. It's better than not having anything in place because it does communicate who's in charge and who gets what. But a will is a very, you know, traditional estate planning document, right? We've seen enough movies throughout the years, right? Someone passes away and the attorney's reading to the heirs, this is the executor and this is who gets what. But that's all a will is. It's a legal document that communicates who's in charge and who gets what. But a will by itself is not enough to keep your assets out of probate court.
So, but let's say somebody doesn't have assets. Do they need that?
You still need to appoint someone that's going to act as an executor of the
Okay.
estate. So
Okay.
bare bones minimum, because here's the thing, and that's what most folks think, right? Oh, well, Keith, I don't have, you know, I'm not a multi-billionaire, I don't have assets. We all own assets. Our home, that's an asset. Bank accounts, retirement accounts, investment accounts, vehicles. If you were to lump together everything that has to do with you, those are your assets. That's your estate when you pass away. So we need to communicate who's going to get that stuff.
Make sure, and by the way, a lot of people I think also when they start doing this, they think it's time. That we're gonna go, the minute they do it, I'm gonna die. That's just how it works.
You got it.
You've
That-
been doing seminars here for a long time.
Long
What do
time,
people
over
say?
a decade. Well, you hear it all the time. Oh, if I do this, then I'm going to pass. Well, no, that's not how it works. We need to do this, and I tell folks this all the time. All this is, it's nothing more than a proactive approach to communicating exactly what's going to have happen before we pass away. And of course, that word proactive meaning what? We're taking action now. We're making decisions now so that in the future it's all spelled out. It's all teed up.
So with Reliant Law Group, what sets them apart from everybody else?
I would say it's our culture at Reliant. It's the staff, it's the legal department, it's the support staff. Again, it's our process to get these documents in place. It's very personalized, from the meeting that you have with our attorney, Doug Drury, all the way to when you meet with Michael Rojas. He's one of our fiduciary advisors, to make sure that the assets are set up properly across the board. When you walk out of our office for the last meeting that we have with you, we usually have about 3 appointments with you, but you're walking out of there with a 100% bulletproof estate plan that's going to, number one, keep our assets out of probate court, and number two, allow us to communicate our wishes.
I've never heard somebody say that as in a bulletproof estate plan. Let me just tell you something. I myself dealt with what I did, and I wish my dad had a bulletproof one.
Yes.
And I want to ask you though, for when you talk about this and people come in, what does that look like when they sit down and talk to you? Because you also do seminars, and I want you to be able to talk a little bit about those.
Yeah. So real quick on the seminars. My whole thing with the seminars, I try to educate folks. That's my mom, she was a teacher. I think that rubbed off on me a little bit. But that's my whole thing, is to educate folks why we need to have these documents in place, but specifically what triggers probate. And everybody's situation is completely different. But with our process, again, a lot of times we're there to consult with clients and kind of help guide them through that process of getting these documents in place. And I always mention this too at the seminars. Part of what we do, we ask our clients to make a few decisions, and we're going to take care of the brunt of the work for you so that it's all done right. You don't have to second guess it.
That's awesome.
Yep.
And so when you do that, how in a seminar, let's say, what do you have any coming up?
Gosh, we have several coming up before the end of the year, and then we have a ton coming up after the first of the year as well.
Do they sign up online, or how do they get to that?
Yeah, well, if you Google Reliant Law Group, give us a call. We've got a whole bunch of seminars. We'll let you know what part of the valley we're in and get you on the schedule for that as well.
Let me just tell you something, folks. It's great to be able to meet with people also doing the same thing at one time and learning this. Education, it's what it's all about.
Yes.
And again, maybe it's you or someone that you know. Don't put your heads in the sand. I know everybody, especially right now, is just worried about everything. But you know what? One thing that you can take charge of is yourself and the things that you should have done. And a lot of people, but they do it when they're ready. That I know.
That's right.
But sometimes when you're ready, it's too late.
Absolutely. Maybe they had a loved one pass away, and now it's top of mind, and they've started to think about it. Or maybe they had a health concern, right? So now they're starting to think about it. But we're getting close to the holidays here, and you mentioned we're doing this for the family. This is hands down the best gift you're ever going to get your loved ones, because again, before something happens, we're communicating our wishes and getting everything buttoned up for them.
Right, absolutely. And also because we've got family coming in town, this coming at the end of the month, right? And you're going to see mom and dad, and you might be coming in town and not have seen your parents for a while. And look, you want to get them to make sure that they have everything in order while they're still at least alive.
You got it. And that's always a tough conversation to have. But again, it needs to be had.
It does. And people just put their heads in the sand. They don't want to talk about it. If you already have one, they do a complimentary review for you, making sure that everything is right. And they said 99% of the time, I'm going to say 99, almost to 100%, they will find that you'll need to change something.
Absolutely.
Now, if you don't have one, let me just tell you, get one. Get one.
That's right.
If you have things that you're not sure need to be notarized or not, let them help you with that as well. That phone number to call them is 602-325-8447. You can check them out. It's Reliant-GH.com.